What's up guys, welcome back. This is anime fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Became Goku's Brother Part 5. Now, let's begin. Upon arriving in the desolate area where the ultimate confrontation with Frieza took place, Gohan experienced a wave of nostalgia that prompted a deep sigh. At that moment, he experienced a profound sense of fear, facing a vengeful Frieza who had returned even stronger than before, accompanied by his father, who, while diminished in strength, remained formidable in his own right. He could now reflect on that time with a sense of satisfaction. Those were the good old days, he remarked with a hint of amusement. Could you please indicate their location? Naruto inquired from his position beside him, atop the mountain they were standing on, overlooking what had once been a battlefield. The remnants of Frieza's ship, reduced to mere scrap, rest at the bottom of a vast crater situated in its center. Gohan shook his head regardless of the circumstances. He was not in favor of the idea of desecrating a corpse. There, he indicated towards the crater, specifically a rough headstone carved from a large rock, which had been left as a courtesy by his father. What is the purpose of acquiring the remains of Frieza and his father? Bulla inquired. Please be patient and observe. Naruto acknowledged her with a wink before leaping from the summit of the mountain, swiftly descending towards the graves of Frieza and his father, covering the distance in an instant. You never mentioned that your father was this entertaining, Bulla remarked. One would expect that with how often my mother spoke highly of him, she would have brought this up. That is due to the fact that, although they share a similar overall vibe, their personalities differ significantly, Gohan stated, offering a slight smile. Naruto possesses certain traits that remind me of my father. However, Naruto exhibits a much rougher demeanor than my father ever did, and he behaves quite like a... He paused, searching for the right words to express his thoughts. An adolescent experiencing heightened sexual curiosity? Bulla inquired, a hint of amusement evident in her expression. He exhaled, indeed, that. Gohan acknowledged his situation with a nod. I find it quite appealing, she remarked, offering him a sidelong glance, her smirk evolving into a warm smile. You were indeed truthful about that warm sensation. It seems he consistently possesses the knowledge of the appropriate actions to take, leading to the assumption that your success is inevitable. Gohan smiled subtly to himself, acknowledging, yeah, you're right. He recognized that, despite embodying Naruto, he also retained the essence of Son Goku. The sound of the earth fracturing captured their focus towards Naruto. The ground before him had fractured into numerous segments. Telekinesis. Gohan contemplated deeply. That was an aspect he had not yet taken the opportunity to learn from Piccolo as well. A moment later, two headless corpses appeared, one approximately the size of Bulla and the other significantly larger, floating into the air. Is that Frieza, the smaller character? Bulla inquired. He must have been quite formidable. I can sense ki still present within his body, and he has been deceased for approximately 15 years, correct? Indeed, Gohan acknowledged with a serious expression. Frieza and his race appear to possess remarkable resilience. Even being severed in two and situated on a planet undergoing an explosion did not result in his demise. Even now, their remains appeared as though they had not undergone any decay. Wow, impressive! The violet-haired girl exclaimed. Indeed, it was a remarkable demonstration of durability, without a doubt. At that time, it is unlikely that even his father would have survived an exploding planet. Indeed, Gohan was quite certain he could not either. Alternatively, even in the event of his death, he would suffocate and perish in the vacuum of space due to the absence of air. It appears that Frieza has lost all of his tail. He perceived Naruto clicking his tongue and expressing discontent, even from the distance separating them. What is his purpose for acquiring Frieza's tail? Bulma inquired, perplexed. I am uncertain. Gohan observed with a measured demeanor as Naruto discarded Frieza's lifeless form into the pit, subsequently directing his attention to the decapitated body of King Cold. At least he possesses one. Naruto contemplated, and before them, he created a Destructo disc in his palm and severed the tail from the massive carcass. He seized the tail and neutralized the Destructo disc before returning the large corpse alongside Frieza's, subsequently placing the debris he had lifted with telekinesis back on top, effectively covering them once more and laying them to rest. If a somewhat unrefined and coarse manner. He then elevated the tail and, to Gohan's astonishment, brought it to his mouth, proceeding to tear into it with his teeth and consume it. I believe I may be feeling unwell, he stated, struggling to maintain composure. What on earth is happening? What is the reason for his consumption of it? Bulla's eyebrows raised in astonishment. A moment later, as Naruto completed his meal, Gohan sensed a surge in his ki, which began to intensify. A powerful crimson aura manifested around Naruto as he heard the youthful, time-displaced version of his father let out a loud roar. Subsequently, Gohan observed Naruto's physique start to increase in size and develop. The phenomenon lasted for approximately 30 seconds, during which the crimson-red aura was drawn inward. Gohan observed in astonishment the transformation that the teenage version of his father had undergone. Head grown about 2 or 3 inches and his musculature had bulked up noticeably. Furthermore, his power had increased significantly. Approximately 1/4 of Gohan's overall base power. This is impressive. Naruto shouted loudly, sounding triumphant. He raised his fist into the air, and to Gohan's astonishment, a robust white arm brace of armor materialized on his wrist, extending to cover his entire forearm. A sharp blade formation protruded from the side, complemented by a gleaming crimson-red gem positioned at the front. That was quite impressive. It resembled the type of armor that Frieza could create to limit his power in lesser forms. Excuse me, did he just acquire the capability to do that and gain a power enhancement from consuming that individual's tail? Bulla inquired, astonished for a brief moment. That is remarkably impressive. Naruto's perspective. May I share something with you? Is it similar to a nearly 2-decade-old space lizard tail? The taste is quite unpleasant. I had to endure a significant challenge in order to consume it effectively. I regret not bringing a bottle of water or another beverage with me before heading out, as the taste has lingered in my mouth. Despite its unpleasant taste, I find myself feeling quite nauseated. The results are undeniable. The power boost was substantial, approximately 2.2 million according to the scouter's assessment. I was pleased with that. However, I received more than I anticipated. Are you aware of the experience of transitioning from relying on oxygen to being able to sustain your lungs with ki? A sudden instinctual change occurred shortly after consuming the tail, nearly causing me to choke from the abrupt transformation. Additionally, there was another instinct that persisted in troubling me. The explanation proved to be challenging. It felt as though an additional sense had been acquired unexpectedly. By instinct, I was able to create bio-armor on my arm, shaping it into a bladed arm guard reminiscent of Cooler's fifth form from the debut movie. That was truly impressive. The radiant red gem within it was truly a pleasure to behold. It resembled the presence of ruby within an arm guard. I could potentially remove the bio-armor and sell it for a significant amount of money. Well, if I weren't already in a relationship with an exceptionally affluent individual back home. I observed the armor on my right arm, then shifted my gaze to my bare chest, as my GI top had been rendered unusable by Fu. Only remnants remained. I removed it from myself and, with a focused thought, generated a set of bio-armor over my torso. I shaped it to resemble the Scion battle armor and created an additional arm guard. Initially, they transformed into a deep black hue, accentuating the vibrant red bio-gems and prominently displaying my biceps and hands. This will suffice for the time being until I can acquire a change of clothes, and it will serve as a suitable base form whenever I choose to utilize it, should the need arise. It is likely that I will primarily utilize the arm guards, and possibly apply them to my tail as well. I am considering crafting some boots from it, as they would likely be more durable than any commercially available options, except perhaps those created by a skilled artisan. Having completed that task, I turned to observe the astonished and disapproving expression of Gohan, contrasted with the smiling demeanor of Bulla. That individual certainly possesses a lively and enjoyable personality. She embodies Bulma, yet is augmented by that Scion instinct. I quickly closed the distance between us and positioned myself beside them once more, stating, "Well, now we can definitely proceed," I remarked, allowing a composed smile to appear on my face as if my recent action was of no significant consequence.
It is advisable to keep this information confidential. I had uncertainty regarding its potential effectiveness. Naruto proposed a theory based on his knowledge of Dragon Ball's future, suggesting that consuming Frieza's tail might enhance his power, though he remained uncertain about its effectiveness. Fortunately, it was successful. If any issues arise as he anticipated, such as mutations resembling Frieza, I would promptly enlist Shenron's assistance to rectify the situation. I maintain a level of attractiveness that prevents any unflattering appearances. What is the reason? Gohan faced difficulty in articulating his thoughts, appearing quite distressed. In one of the futures I observed, an individual named Tak consumed Frieza's tail after Krillin severed it, resulting in a significant power enhancement, I remarked casually. I did not anticipate acquiring Frieza's, or rather King Cold's, unique ability to sustain oneself through ki alone, nor the capacity to generate bio-armor, but I have no objections. It is unacceptable and lacks proper hygiene standards. Gohan expressed his objections. Indeed, it was, and the taste of his tail was quite unpleasant. I maintained a smile while suppressing the urge to laugh. However, with my regenerative abilities, any harmful effects from it will be effectively managed. Shall we proceed? Gohan appeared dejected as I remained entirely unapologetic, much to Bulla's amusement, who erupted in laughter. I believe it was quite bold of you. The half-Saiyan with curvy violet hair tapped me on the shoulder and gave me a wink, saying, "This armor is quite impressive as well. I would appreciate having it. If Cooler, Frieza's older brother, appears here at any time, you have the option to eliminate him and utilize his resources." I chuckled softly. It appears there is another one, then. Excellent, Bulla clenched her fists together, stating, "Then I will proceed with that." Frieza has a sibling? Gohan turned abruptly and looked at me with astonishment. I believe it is a son. I pointed out. Oh great, just what I need. Gohan rubbed his face with his palm. I looked at him with a grin before Bulla poked me in the cheek, pulling my focus back to her. "So, where to now?" she asked. "Right now. Looks like it's time to see how Bulma and Dend are doing. Check in on how they were handling what they experienced." "Right now, I should go see how Bulma and Dend are doing." I responded and waved my hand through the air, creating a portal to my personal dimension where I could sense them inside. It felt like they were inside the spaceship. "Wait, Bulma and Dend." Gohan gasped and looked up at me. "They're here with you?" "Yeah," I said, pointing to the portal, "it's just right in here. I put them in here to keep them safe when we got here, and then we saw what was happening. I sensed some tension, so I hurried over." "Is this another version of Mom?" Bulla grabbed her chin and flashed a big grin. "This is going to be fun." As soon as I walked through the portal, a blue-haired missile came flying at me, wrapping their arms around my neck. A really nice pair of lips moved forward, and where were they headed? "It's mine." Just before her lips met mine, I raised a hand to pause her, saying, "Hold on a sec, I wouldn't go there right now unless you're into the flavor of lizard that's been around for a decade," I said as I gently pulled away from Bulma's attempt to kiss me. Seriously?" She pulled away, scrunching her nose in disgust, and untangled herself from me. "What the hell did you get up to this time?" "Not much going on, just had a bite of Frieza's dad's tail," I said with a shrug. "Oh, and I figured out when we ended up. In about 17 years, in a future where I never came to be." "Wait, what?" Bulma gave me a blank stare as I glanced over her shoulder and spotted Dend slumped in one of the chairs next to the television, looking a little down. Wow, that massacre he witnessed must have really impacted him. "Oh, and I almost forgot to tell you," I said, "I've got this cool ability to see into the future, and that's part of why Fu was so interested in me." "So, what did you end up doing?" Her eyes locked onto mine, completely expressionless. "Oh, not much really. I just lent a hand to a fully grown son Gohan in Bulla briefs, who could have been your future daughter with one of the Saiyans if I hadn't swooped in and taken you for myself," I said casually. "We were up against a couple of ruthless androids made by Dr. Gero from the Red Ribbon Army, who've wiped out all our friends in this timeline, leaving Gohan as the only survivor." Lovely," Bulma said with a playful pout. "Before we dive into the big elephant in the room, can I ask you something? So, did you come over here to whisk me away before I even got to meet this Saiyan dude I supposedly had a kid with?"
Before I could say anything, someone jumped in for me. Most likely, Daddy here strikes me as the type. Bulla, who I had asked to hang back while I sorted things out, strolled through the portal. "Not that you're missing much. So, Vegeta, just so you know, my dad was a real jerk. Honestly, you're way better off without him, even if it means missing out on the amazingness that is me." Bulma glanced past me, her mouth falling open and her eyes widening as she took in the younger, scantily clad version of herself. The only differences were their height, the fullness of their curves, and the color of their hair. "Bulla, he told me to wait." Gohan shouted after her while rushing in too, but then he suddenly stopped in his tracks when he saw Dend. Bulla blinked, taking in Bulma, who looked just like her mom from another timeline. Her mouth dropped wide open. Holy shit, you're strong. She stared in disbelief. Wow, you're even stronger than Master Gohan when he's not a Super Saiyan. Bulla, huh? Bulma said, gradually regaining her awareness. She let out a sigh, rubbing her forehead. Here I am, questioning again. What's up with my life being so strange? My lovely girlfriend let out a sigh and said, you need to go to the bathroom and brush your teeth for the next hour. I'm not kissing you until I'm sure whatever this king cold is completely gone from your mouth, she told me. Alright, let's chat then. Of course, babe, I said. So, before we dive in. I walked over to Dend and softly placed my hand on his shoulder. Hey little green, you good? Yeah, Mr. Naruto, he said, looking down a bit and squeezing his small, trembling fists together. I just don't get why people would do what we saw earlier. Miss Bulma really helped me out a little with it. That's great to hear, my friend, I playfully ruffled his little bald head. Could you do me a favor? Den nodded and said, if there's any way I can help Mr. Naruto, just let me know. Thanks. I said, gesturing towards Gohan and Bulla. Do you see those two? Hey, do you think you can tap into that ability Guru gave you and unlock their hidden powers? Alright. Den said, jumping off his seat and walking over to Gohan. So, while he was doing that, I made my way to the bathroom to wash away that awful taste in my mouth and get back to enjoying some sweet moments with my girlfriend. So, as I walked into the bathroom, the spaceship started shaking, and I could feel Gohan's ki just skyrocketing. It was reaching some crazy high levels, maybe even higher than mine once it settles down. That's awesome. I grabbed my toothbrush, squeezed some toothpaste onto it, and got started. A little while later, Bulla's ki started to increase quickly. It might not be as strong as Gohan's or even close to Bulma's, but it definitely wasn't weak at all. As a Super Saiyan, she'd definitely have what it takes to handle Frieza and could put up a pretty good fight against Android 18, in my opinion. When I walked back into the room a few minutes later, my mouth feeling all minty fresh, I saw Gohan and Bulla. They both looked super pleased and totally shocked at the same time. What just happened? Bulla looked at me as I walked in and said, my power, it's rising. Super quick and it just keeps on rolling. You'll get the hang of it once it settles down, Bulma said with a shrug. It might take a few hours before you reach the peak, though. Thanks, Dend, Gohan said with a smile, looking down at the little Namekian boy next to him. Because of you, with this power, I can take on the androids myself now and save the world. He made the promise seriously. Sure thing, Mr. Gohan. Dend responded with a hint of shyness. That's great to hear, I said as I walked in and plopped down on my bed. I mean, I'm okay with it, but honestly, it's way better for you to take them on by yourself. Gohan nodded and said, so when you feel it's the right moment to put them to use for your plan, you'll handle it myself. He said with a serious nod. Good, I nodded and then turned to Dend. Hey, little green, how fast can you bring back the Eternal Dragon and the Dragon Balls? Dend said, blinking and scratching his cheek. If the original sculpture is still here, I think I can do it right away. Awesome, you're really getting close to being Super Kami Dend, I said, and I could see his cheeks turn a bit red. Then I looked over at Bulla. While Gohan takes care of the androids with his new strength later, why don't you join me and we can head to the lookout together? She gave me a thumbs up and said, gotcha, daddy. Sure, I'll jump in here. Bulma crossed her arms and shot me a glare. Seriously, why do you have my daughter from an alternate timeline calling you daddy? Just a little game, I said after thinking for a bit, but hey, it is technically applicable, right? If my balls have anything to say about it, they'll be sending a version of her your way sometime down the line. I definitely plan to have some fun with her and maybe start a family down the line. Oh, come on. Gohan let out a groan as the serious vibe was totally shattered. Do you really not feel any sense of shame or propriety? What's that? Is it okay to eat it? I tilted my head and asked him. Oh yeah, Dad's got some serious skills, woo. Bulla raised her fist and cheered me on with enthusiasm. Bulma glanced away from me and shot a dry look. Are you really telling me there's no version of you that got this timeline's me pregnant? She said to me, you know, she really seems a lot like you. If only, Bulla shrugged, if he was, I bet those androids would have gotten taken down the moment they showed up. Wow, I really like this girl, she totally understands me. I totally agree with that, I said. Because, you know, I'm pretty awesome. I've only been here for less than 2 months, and I can already give them a run for their money. I would have taken those damn murder bots out of the picture a long time ago, plus, she's really similar to you, just with those scion instincts turned up a notch. She's pretty much you as a scion, babe. Wow, that's a pretty scary thought, Bulma said with a shudder. Me, turning into an autistic fight meathead like all those idiots back home. No, thank you. You won't know until you give it a shot, Mom. Bulla snorted and shrugged her shoulders. I mean, with how ridiculously strong you are, can you honestly say that? It's just so strange to be called that, Bulma said, wrinkling her nose at the girl. Yeah, you know, with all this power I've got. It was basically a gift from your dad, she shot back, gesturing towards me. Bulla turned to me, raising an eyebrow, and I just shrugged, didn't I tell you? Dad looks after his girls. She looked back at Bulma, hey Mom, is it alright if I'm Daddy's girl? Bulla gave her a sly smile. Bulma let out a laugh, crossing her arms over her chest. Sure, but hey, don't come crying to me if he gets a little too touchy, she said with a smirk. He might just give you a smack if you get on his nerves. So, I guess Daddy has to discipline his naughty little girl, huh? Bulla shot back immediately. Gohan was starting to look really shocked by what he was hearing. I really felt like just letting him off the hook and wrapping things up right then and there. Honestly, I'm really enjoying how this is turning out. Sorry, buddy. Your sacrifice won't go unnoticed. It feels just like when King Piccolo showed up again. Bulma pursed her lips while soaring over the ruins of North City. She really tried hard not to look down. She had realized that ever since Naruto gave her those fruits and Guru helped unlock her potential, or whatever that giant elder named Kian did, her senses had really sharpened. If she concentrated, she could actually see down onto the streets clearly. Honestly, she felt like once was more than enough for her today when it came to emptying her stomach. This place was really just awful this time around. Just a world without Dragon Balls or Goku to fix things up again. Or at least that was the case until that weird, glasses-wearing demon jerk kicked them all into this timeline. So, here we are with her, Dend, and Naruto is totally fired up, all set to save the world. She knew he wasn't a fan of being compared to Goku, but honestly, when it came to reliability, he was just like him, maybe even more so, since he was definitely smarter than her oldest friend. So, on top of everything, he could also see the future thanks to some crazy stuff related to his scion dad. That totally made everything Naruto was doing click into place. Honestly, it wasn't really a surprise. Kaiatsu had his own kind of precognition, but when he looked far into the future, it was mostly just random things happening around him. She was really happy to discover that when he looked into the future and saw what was ahead, including a timeline like this one of the first things he did after getting his bearings was to try and grab her before she met this Vegeta guy. Bulla mentioned that she definitely had better luck with Naruto compared to Vegeta, who just up and left after getting her pregnant in this timeline to train to become a Super Saiyan. Then, to top it all off, he ended up dying like a total loser after that. It's obvious she ended up with the better Saiyan boyfriend. Wow, Ki is just so convenient, she mused as she zipped past North City in no time and got closer to her destination, West City. She was on her way to her home. Bulla mentioned that they were still living in the estate her father built, even though it had really fallen apart over the years. The grown-up Gohan turned out to be quite the handsome and dependable guy. He left with one of his girlfriend's clones, and believe it or not, he was even taller than Goku by a few inches. Naruto took Bulla and Dend and made his way to Camus Lookout. She found herself with nothing to do but hang out in Naruto's personal dimension. While she was totally on board with kicking back and letting everyone else deal with the chaos, she couldn't shake off her curiosity about what this timeline's version of her was like. So, that's where she was going. To meet her future partner. Plus, she would likely go a bit stir-crazy if she just sat around doing nothing right now. There was just so much craziness happening around her. So, here she is in this future timeline, running into what could be her daughter with Naruto. And get this, Naruto showed up after munching on the tail of that Frieza guy's dad and somehow grew 3 inches taller. Now he's just an inch shorter than her. How wild is that? If he experiences the same kind of growth that Goku did during his growth spurt, then Naruto is going to be huge. She couldn't help but giggle at the thought. Even right now, he was incredibly attractive, with abs that looked like they could grind meat. If he experienced that kind of growth, she'd likely find it hard to resist him. And his cock was probably going to get even bigger, which is a pretty scary thought considering how big it was already. She pushed those thoughts aside for a moment and straightened up as she spotted the familiar massive yellow domed mansion ahead. The roof has some holes, and quite a few of the windows are cracked. The beautiful lawn she recalled was once wild and free, with the fencing all out of sorts. Naruto's perspective. As soon as we all broke off into our own groups and went our separate ways, I started looking around for a familiar key signature. Honestly, it took me longer than I wanted to admit. Even with the world's population cut down by more than half, his energy was still tough to spot. So, I finally tracked him down, and with Bulla and Dend, we made our way over there. Meanwhile, Gohan was off chasing another one of my clones to handle the androids, and Bulma chose to go meet her counterpart from this timeline. Wow, that meeting sounds like it was something I really wish I could have attended. But it has to be done. We got there pretty quickly, even though the lookout was constantly on the move and not docked above Corinne's tower at the moment. It's likely because Corinne has passed away, and so has Cammy. Wow, this place is really fancy. Bulla let out a whistle as we landed at the lookout. I couldn't help but nod in agreement as I took in my surroundings. Even in this timeline, it was just as pristine as always. The white tiled flooring looks immaculate, the trees and grass are fresh and lush, and the home of the Guardian of the Earth, once Camus' residence, looks more resplendent than ever. So, it's the place where the Guardian of Earth hangs out. I shrugged and headed toward the building, with Bulla and Den trailing behind me. As we got closer, I could feel that familiar energy from Popo coming our way. Just as he reached the stairs that led up to the entrance, Popo came stepping out. His wide eyes blinked slowly as he took us in. Wow. I thought my senses were playing tricks on me, he said. But, you really are Goku, or at least a version of him. Whoa, what on earth is that? Bulla pointed at Popo in shock. I'm Mr. Popo, the attendant for the Guardians of the Earth, he said with a gentle smile. It's great to meet you all. Wow, it feels like ages since the lookout has had any visitors. His eyes roved over all of us, lingering on Dend. Hey Popo, I waved at him. Yeah, I'm a version Son Goku from another timeline. This Bulla, the daughter of Bulma and Denda named Kian from the planet Namek and a member of the Dragon Clan like Cammy. A pleasure, Popo inclined his head lightly, before smiling at me. I assume you are here about the Dragon Balls. He mused. Popo always was incredibly intuitive. He had a whole slew of powerful and mysterious abilities and was always a great help whenever someone needed him no matter the saga. That's right, I nodded, gesturing to Dend. If you have the original sculpture, Dend should be capable of reviving Shenron. His eyes lit up. That's wonderful news. Popo clasped his hands together. Can I assume you will be wishing back those who died? Exactly, I said with a nod. So if Cammy is still hanging out in the afterlife and hasn't reincarnated or merged with Piccolo, then he should be back too. It could throw a wrench in my plan for Cell, but I suppose he could always kick things off as Camus' apprentice if it comes to that. That sounds great. Popo replied with enthusiasm. The sculpture is in my room, right next to the inert Dragon Balls. I collected them years ago to study, hoping to create a set powerful enough to bring the dead back to life, but unfortunately, no luck so far. Just give me a sec, and I'll grab them for you. So, with that, he happily and excitedly dashed back into Camus' place to grab them, leaving us on our own. So, Dragon Balls, huh? Bulla crossed her arms and started chatting. Mom used to tell me stories about them, but I could never really believe her. They sounded like a fairy tale. So, they're actually real, huh? Yep, I said, gesturing to myself, in the proof right here. I owe my life to them, and I actually used 3 wishes back on Den's home planet for a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, you mentioned that back in your little tree dimension thing, Bulla said with a grin. Well, it'll be awesome to check out this huge dragon at least. Hey, so do you have any wishes lined up or what? I've got a couple of ideas, but they kind of hinge on a few factors, I replied, then shifted my focus to Dend. Do you think you can make it so Shenron can grant 3 wishes while keeping his power level the same? Den bit his lip and said, "Alone, even with the fruit you've given me, I'm not so sure," he replied. "But, if you could use your connection with Shenron to give me that extra power, I think it might just be possible." I smiled and said, "Perfect." There were definitely a bunch of wishes I'd love to use. I had my eye on 2 specific ones that I wanted to grab right away. It just wouldn't be cool to use all the wishes and not bring back everyone who has passed away here. Luckily, it looked like the connection I had with Shenron would help me get around that little problem. "Thanks a bunch, Cammy." A few minutes later, Popo came back, holding a small glass display case with 7 little stone spheres floating in the air behind him. "Here you go," he said, holding out the display case and letting the 7 stone spheres gently drop to the ground. The stone model of Shenron was showcased beautifully behind the glass. "Oh wow, that's such a cool shape." Den smiled as he examined it and gently took the glass case from Popo. "Hey, watch out," Popo chuckled, "I had a hand in making it." "I will be." Den smiled at him, then turned around and set it down gently on the ground in front of him. "Should I just start right away?" he asked me. "If it's not too much trouble, little green." I gave him a smile. "Alright, I'll take care of it right now." Den smiled back and then turned to the sculpture of Shenron. He raised his hands, his eyes narrowing as he focused, and a golden light started to outline his hands. That really doesn't seem like Ki." Bulla leaned in closer, looking at him with curiosity. "I just can't feel it at all." "Akula Kapanara Poon Shenron," Den started to chant, his hands glowing with a golden light that flowed down to envelop the stone model of Shenron, filling it with that same warm glow. "Shalala, Porpongo Shanimitala." A whistling sound started to come from Den, and the golden light began to spread all over him. Suddenly, golden energy started to swirl around him, bursting forth in a magical display as it danced around the statue of Shenron. The sky started to get darker, and the statue began to shine more and more, almost like a little golden sun was coming to life right in front of me. So, then, the golden light just burst out. It shot up in a huge, twisting beam of golden light, swirling above the lookout like a serpent. Then, it split into 7 different parts and dove back down faster than a bolt of lightning, piercing into the 7 stone spheres. The flash of golden light faded, and the sky cleared up. A second later, 7 orange spheres buzzing and shimmering softly around each other replaced the 7 stone spheres. "It's done." Den slumped on his backside, panting, and turned to me with a tired smile. "When you summon Shenron, give your energy to him. He should be able to accept it because of your close nature and connection with the Shenron of our time." Simple enough to follow. "Good work, Den, you're amazing." I approached him and gently patted his head, really getting close to being Super Kami Den. He lowered his head modestly and chuckled gently at my compliment. "It's only natural to help you out after everything you did for us back home, right?" he murmured. I believe he was attempting to do it discreetly so I wouldn't notice, but I did regardless. "So these are the Dragon Balls, huh?" Bulla stepped up, took up one of the 6-star balls, and began scrutinizing it. "They sure are shiny." "That's them," I confirmed with a nod. "May as well use my desires now, but first, hey Popo." I phoned my creator's counterpart. "Yes." He turned to me and asked, "Do you know what happened to the seed from the Tree of Might after Tulls attacked this planet?" I asked him. Popo mused. "A strange question. But, assuming it survived the tree's destruction, I suspect it is in the crater produced when Goku used the spirit bomb to kill Tulls. Would you be able to find it?" I inquired, hiding my own eagerness. When I originally planted the Tree of Might in my own realm, it occupied half of the island inside it. But the island had expanded quite a bit, and there should be plenty of room for another. And if I can get my hands on another seed, I will be able to treble the amount of fruit I harvest each day. If it was not destroyed, it should not be a problem. Popo responded. "Can you get it for me while we make the wishes?" I asked. "You can teleport any place on Earth, right?" "It's critical to discover it, if it still exists." "I do not see why not," Popo answered with a shrug. "As long as you make the wish to revive Kami and Piccolo, I will happily do this for you." "Yes." I mentally rejoiced and fought the want to fist bump. "Don't worry about it, I'm going to bring them back anyway," I replied. "Very well, then I shan't be long." Popo clasped his hands behind his back and nodded. "Kai Kai," he said simply, then vanished entirely, his ki disappearing and reappearing far away from my perceptions. What the hell? Bulla looked shocked. He just disappeared and I felt his ki appear on the other side of the world. Yep. In some senses, Popo is full of nonsense. But, that's strange. I assumed he required his flying carpet to teleport around. I guess not. I shrugged. Right then, let's get this show on the road. I cracked my fingers before turning to the Dragon Balls, pointing for Bulla to drop the one in her palm, which she immediately did. Arise, Shenron. I commanded after she had put it among its siblings. The sky darkened instantly, and the 7 Dragon Balls exploded once again into flashing bright golden light that fused together to form a gigantic beam that flew into the air, swimming through it like a serpent through water. Expanding and expanding, it eventually surrounded the viewpoint 3 times over. A minute later, the light faded, and in its place stood a massive, beautiful serpentine green dragon with fiery red eyes proclaiming, "I am the eternal dragon." Shenron bellowed, staring down upon us, "Speak now, and I will grant you 3 wishes." Holy shit. Bulla yelled in amazement, but Den just assessed Shenron with a pleased smile. Yeah, the small boy performed some great job. Shenron. I yelled up to the magnificent dragon, "I wish for the ability to use my magic power like a magic user born with the ability to." An easy task. Shenron sneered, his fiery red eyes beginning to sparkle. Your wish has been granted. As soon as he finished speaking, something clicked inside me. Like inserting a key into a lock and rotating it to open it. I could constantly sense the power within me, but it was as if there was a gigantic wall preventing me from grabbing it. The only way I could get to it was through a little hole, or so it seems to me, that fed into my link to Shenron and Purunga and then into my ki. But now I could feel it freely and grab it with ease, just like my ki. I grabbed and dragged it. My magic differs from others. Kami intended the magic he provided the original to be utilized as an upgrade to his ki via the Dragon Fist because he lacked the capacity to employ magic for mystical reasons. Basically, it was transforming the supernatural force within him and me into a massive hammer. And now I can take it even farther. I combined my magic and ki and increased my power to its present maximum. My crimson ki aura suddenly appeared around me, but that wasn't all. Dazzling white bioelectric bolts flared across my aura, similar to sizzling lightning bolts. With a touch of the button on my scouter, I scanned my base form's current full power. 96,740,027, and this was with my power at barely a fifth of its highest after I halved it with the multi-form, then halved it again. That means my genuine full power would be 386,960,109. Yes, this version of mine, which I'll refer to as Mystic Scion, has 3 times my regular strength. And if my estimates are accurate, it'll be nearing 20 billion as a Mystic Super Scion. It took everything I had not to bust out laughing so hard. Bulma has previously stated that I sounded like a true villain when I did it. I separated my magic and ki and brought my aura back within me, enabling my strength to return to its resting condition. Damn, Daddy, Bulla murmured as I powered down. It didn't take you long to surpass Master Gohan again, huh? You're full of garbage. Language, young lady, I admonished her with a smile. Or do you want me to put you over my knee? She clutched her cheeks and faux screamed in terror, "Oh no, I'm sorry Daddy, please don't spank my sweet perky ass." The violet-haired girl leaned over at the waist, pushing her spandex-clad rear end out at me and wriggling it. What a filthy temptress. That was one beautiful ass. Not quite a full-fledged pog ass like Bulma, but it was well on its way, with that full-toned perkiness that must have come with all her training. She'd have a full-blown bubble buttocks that jutted out high, round, and proud, for sure. Excuse, can get you a move on and make your next wish already. Shenron grumbled in frustration, preventing me from responding. Oh, yeah. Alright then, for my second wish, I continued after sending Bulla a wink and receiving a cheeky smirk from her. I wish for all the information the people known as Son Goku, Son Gohan, Piccolo, Kami, Popo, Krillin, Master Roshi, Tien Shinhan, Yamcha, Kaiatsu, Vegeta, Frieza, King Cold, Cooler's armored squadron, and the Jinyu Force know about manipulating ki, magic, and power-raising transformations like the Super Saiyan transformations that I can use. I wish I had given this more thought. I even skipped the part about studying all of their martial arts because the amount of knowledge would likely be hundreds of years worth and may be too much for my head to process. Very good. Wish granted. Shenron bellowed again, his eyes glowing brilliant red. My head was overwhelmed with information at the time. It was all happening so quickly that I couldn't keep up. So many approaches and uses. Decades, if not hundreds of years, of key training and manipulation flooded through me, much too much for me to grasp. I passed out. What the hell? Bulla's eyes widened as she witnessed Naruto's eyes roll up into the back of his head, his body begin to spasm, and then collapse on his back, twitching all over the place as if he were having a crazy fit. Mr. Naruto. Dend, the cute tiny green man, exclaimed in surprise, sprinting over to the elder lad and kneeling by his side. Bulla raced over as well, and her eyes widened as she saw blood dripping from his ears and nose. A snarl from her lips, and she gazed up at the massive dragon staring down at them. You, what the hell did you do? She yelled, raising a hand, a sphere of ki forming in her palm. The massive S-dragon, Shenron, sneered, I only gave his request as he asked. The giant dragon rumbled, it is no fault of mine that he could not manage the vast amount of knowledge I handed on to him. He should be grateful that he has regeneration since otherwise he would be brain dead right now. Bulla clicked her tongue. The dragon was completely unrepentant. But, as much as she wanted to smack it in the nose, she couldn't really be upset with it for performing what was asked. Hey, Edend. She queried the alien boy, worried about Naruto. There is still one desire, correct? And we need Naruto's energy to resurrect everyone, correct? If you want Shenron to resurrect all of the people killed by the androids, yes, Dend agreed, glancing up from where she had witnessed him filling Naruto with golden light from his hands. She guessed again, we'll have to wait for Naruto to wake up, but I'm not sure how long that will take. Brain injuries are very distinct from conventional bodily wounds. I'm tired of being in the mortal plane, Shenron said again. His recuperation time has nothing to do with me. Make your final wish. Bulla gritted her teeth. This was complete rubbish. How much fucking knowledge did he stuff into his skull if it was enough to knock down a person who could smack those two monster androids as easily as breathing? How long do you think it'll be before we can wish again? She asked, feeling a bit stuck after trying to come up with a plan. 6 months, or maybe just 2 if there's still a wish left. She clicked her tongue, making a little sound of disapproval. Well, it wasn't exactly what Naruto had in mind, but she figured it wasn't too long either way. Alright. So, how many people can you actually bring back to life with your powers right now? She asked. Shenron sighed, I can bring back one person who's passed away right now. That's not great at all. Forget it. She thought about bringing her father back just to meet the jerk, but honestly, she didn't care about him all that much. They really wouldn't be here if it weren't for Naruto. He's done so much for them, even saved her life when that crazy blonde was about to take her out earlier today. So, she figured she might as well handle Naruto's debt for him. Alright, I wish for Kami to be brought back to life. She called out to the dragon. Your wish is my command. Shenron's voice echoed, his eyes lighting up for the 3rd time, I'm sorry, but it looks like I can't grant this wish. Kami, my original creator, has merged with Piccolo. Bulla shot a glare at the dragon, saying, just bring this Piccolo guy back, and then get lost. She said with a straight face. That's rude, Shenron shot her a glare, his eyes starting to glow for a 4th time. Sure thing, I can handle that. Your wish is granted. Then the dragon just burst into light and vanished without even saying goodbye. So, those 7 Dragon Balls just turned to stone right in front of her. Then, they shot off in 7 different directions, spreading all over the world, or at least that's what she remembered her mom saying about them. Awesome, just awesome. At least Master Gohan will be happy, she thought, lounging back comfortably and gazing up at the sky. So, that Piccolo guy was his teacher, just like he is mine, huh? Oh, so this is where they've decided to set up shop, huh? Gohan asked, his lips pressed into a tight frown as he looked down from way up high at the private tropical island. He spotted a huge, fancy mansion, complete with a big swimming pool in the back. There were all kinds of sports cars parked around the property, and just down the lane from the mansion, there was a gorgeous beach. It was the sort of place that only someone like Bulma could afford, and Jero just let those monsters run wild. So, they were coming back here to chill in luxury after taking out so many people, huh? He clenched his fists tightly, struggling to keep his surging ki in check. Thank goodness those creepy monsters couldn't pick up on ki, or he'd be shining like a bright beacon in the dark for them to spot. Yeah, that's the spot. The first clone Naruto created earlier gave a nod. The teenage version of his dad was just hanging out in midair, resting his chin on one hand like it was no big deal. This place is pretty cool, the second clone said, casually looking at the mansion way down below. It's a bit bigger than our place back home, and it even has its own private beach. We don't really need it, right? No point in grabbing it when we're finished, the first clone said with a casual shrug. I bet Bulma can hook us up with a way better one in a capsule whenever we want, and ITLL have way better electronics too. Yeah, totally, the second nodded along, and Gohan thought it was pretty strange. The second clone turned to him and asked, do you need our help at all? He really didn't want to lie, he was so tempted to just say yes. So, hey, race the thing. No, I'd rather do this alone, Gohan said, shaking his head. You know what? I've got to handle this on my own. I've got to stick it out and see it through myself. That works for me. The less I have to do carrying everyone else, the better, the first clone said with a shrug. He then narrowed his eyes at Gohan, and even though he was way stronger than this clone in his base state, he felt himself tensing up under that intense gaze. Just remember to keep that temper of yours in check, Gohan. Just take them down and hold them tight, you can go as far as you want, but make sure they're still breathing and in one piece. I get it. Gohan just gave a nod. It was really strange to hear a version of his father so openly okay with him being involved in such brutality. If it had been anyone else as the targets, Gohan would have been totally horrified. Okay then, the second shrugged, I guess we're all set here. Just bring them to the lookout when you're finished. He told him, and then just faded away, totally vanishing. Don't forget to put on your big boy pants. The other guy grinned before he vanished too, going back to the original Naruto. Gohan took a deep breath and found his focus. After he finished that, he let his mind wander back to those memories from way back when. It's about his beloved mentor getting pierced right through the heart, and the dependable Krillin getting teamed up on and wiped out from existence by those huge beams of ki coming from both sides. He felt that familiar rage rising up inside him, and the primal golden glow within surged, enveloping him completely. Rah! He growled, a fiery golden glow suddenly flaring up around him. So, he just went for it, diving deep and crashing right into the mansion. Boom! It exploded, taking the whole place and all their toys with it. As he emerged from the rubble, he saw them both struggling to pull themselves up from it. Android 18 was nursing a bunch of wounds and torn clothes from her fight with Naruto, while Android 17 looked totally fine and just brushed himself off. Oh, hey Gohan, it's just you, the guy let out a sigh of relief, even though his sister was hissing like a wild animal and shooting him a death glare. For a moment, I thought it was that monster kid. You're going to wish it was him by the time I'm done with you. Gohan made a promise. Right now, he was over 30 times stronger than he was just earlier today, and they were definitely in for a surprise soon. You're really going to regret coming out of your hole when I'm wearing your rib cage as a hat, you weakling. Android 18 let out a fierce roar and shot towards him. Hey, I'm back. Piccolo observed as he stood amidst the wreckage of a completely destroyed city, with tens of thousands of decomposing bodies scattered across the streets. It was the strangest thing. He was deep in meditation while everyone else was taking a break from training, and Goku was busy sparring with Piccin. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out in his mind, giving him the opportunity to come back to life. Hey, it's the voice of the Eternal Dragon, Shenron. There was absolutely no hesitation. He didn't even take the time to track down the others to give them a heads up, he just went ahead and accepted the offer. It had been 13 years since he had seen Gohan. It's been 13 long, worrying years. For more than 10 years, he hadn't heard anything from back on Earth. Since the Dragon Balls were out of reach and there was no way to return, King Kai had to stick to the afterlife rules. That meant no interference or even keeping an eye on Earth. The only way to stay in the loop about what was happening was by watching the checkout station closely. People kept showing up in large numbers, getting taken out by the androids, so he figured they were still out there somewhere. So, Gohan was just left all by himself to handle everything. He was just a kid, still learning the ropes and all alone. The fact that he had lived this long really showed just how amazing the boy was. So, when Shenron offered him the choice, he jumped right in without a second thought. He needed to head back. He really needed to check on Gohan and lend a hand, no matter what it took. You know, the truth is, without Gohan around, even the hero's afterlife felt a bit empty. It really hit hard knowing that Gohan was still out there in the living world, struggling without my help. Gohan. Piccolo took a moment to think and then extended his finely tuned senses all over the planet, looking for that familiar key. Right away, a bunch of key signatures caught his attention. One was definitely stronger than the rest at base level, aside from Goku and himself, while the other matched Vegeta's power before he faced the android, maybe even a little stronger. Another one was actually a good bit stronger than he realized Nail was before they fused. It felt like something I knew well. Dend. Piccolo figured out who it was after a moment and suddenly understood why Shenron had returned. Dend was on Earth, can you believe it? Two, however, really stood out the most. It was like feeling a bit like Goku, but with a twist. They're rougher and definitely don't have that Super Saiyan vibe, but wow, they're way stronger than Goku in his base form, even stronger than Frieza. But the one that really grabbed his attention was an incredibly high power. It was so big that it was tough to really tell just how massive it was. But it must have been getting close to 40 times bigger than his own. The only Ki had ever felt that strong was Goku in his Super Saiyan 3 form, but even that didn't quite compare. Even though it felt older, darker, and way angrier than had ever experienced, he could never mistake Gohan's Ki for anyone else. Before he realized it, Piccolo was zooming through the air at full speed, showing off his power without a care in the world. He was unleashing all that power had built up over more than 10 years of training in Otherworld, merging with Kami, and now he was racing towards Gohan's Ki as fast as he could. Before he realized it, just a few minutes later, he found himself at his destination there above a small private island in the middle of the ocean. As he came to a stop, Piccolo's eyes widened, and he felt a tightness in his chest. There, down below, he could make out the cold mask on a face that was both so different and yet so familiar. Golden blonde hair and icy teal blue eyes, huh? Why won't you just die already? The female android charged at Gohan, looking all bloodied and beaten, but there was a fierce snarl on her lips as she shouted, "I hate you." Just as she was about to strike Gohan, he swiftly slapped her, sending her crashing into the ground and creating a huge crater that stretched for hundreds of feet. "You hate that you're powerless to stop me," Gohan said, his voice now older and rougher, a far cry from the kind, soft tone he used to have. "What do you think the people you killed felt? What's going on with my friends and my master? How do you think they felt when you took their lives, you monster?" I blinked and just stared at her, feeling a bit confused. "What?" Kranoa brushed off my question, saying, "Just know that I'm juggling a lot of wild things right now to meet you without that guy catching on that I'm onto him," she added, then asked, "So, are you in?" "Hey, you know what? Forget Fu. You know, it doesn't really matter if you're a good person deep down. The truth is, you messed with me and turned my life into an even bigger chaotic mess. Hey, that's not cool. So, there's this guy named Fu, right? He's like this wild science experiment that Tawa whipped up with her crazy petri dish buddy, Mira." I started sharing everything I knew about him. "Honestly, he's what Cell dreams of. Bange's got a mix of Scion, Kai, demon, human, named Kian, and even some eternal dragon in him. Seriously, he's got DNA from the best across all the timelines. He wants to mess with timelines to gather all that wild energy from the changes and use it with something called the universe tree to make his own universe." Her fingers paused in my hair, and she looked down at me with a straight face. "You're kidding, right?" she asked, her eyes completely blank. "So, aside from the whole not wanting to hurt anyone and trying to improve things in the timelines he messes with, that's pretty much all I've got." I just shrugged. "Ugh, just great," she sighed, resting her adorable little hand on her equally adorable face. "I really thought handling Demigra again was tough." She clicked her tongue and shook her head, then looked back into my eyes. "We're gonna need a lot more firepower if we're dealing with someone who can manipulate the universe tree," Kranoa said, keeping it straightforward. "Even Kronal won't be able to match up against something like that right now." "Hey, Kronal." I raised an eyebrow, feeling a bit confused. Wow, that's a name I've never come across before. Maybe someone from Dragon Ball Heroes. Oh, him. Chronal's the strongest member of the Time Patrol, she said. He's teamed up with my best agent, Trunks Briefs. So, he's this cool mix of half Scion and half Kai, and guess what? He can actually go Super Saiyan Rose. We really owe it to him for helping us take care of Demigra not too long ago. Cronoa sighed and said, I really wish he wasn't so secretive about his origins, she thought aloud. He's the first half Kai I've ever encountered, and he was born with the natural god ki of a Kai along with mortal ki. All he's shared is that his dad is supposedly some kind of freak of nature, so incredibly strong that he makes Demigra look weak, even in his demon god form. What kind of ridiculous Gary Stu nonsense is that? He's probably the hero from Xenoverse 1, but wow, what in the world is that? Who does he think he is, that edgy guy Zicorn from that one fan series? The guy who is Goku's son and that Supreme Kai lady who got taken out by Kid Buu? Honestly, the son of Goku and a Kai. It feels like one of those over-the-top, edgy characters that are just way too powerful, like a self-insert gone wild. I know it'll take me some time to get as strong as a Super Saiyan god. I responded after pushing that wild stuff out of my head. I get it, but you're actually making pretty good progress, she smiled at me, plus, I haven't just been sitting around here. I thought something like this might pop up, so I went ahead and did a bit of gardening for you. She swiped her hand, and suddenly, a portal shimmered into existence right next to us. I could see my personal dimensions, my personal dimension that now featured two gigantic monolithic trees shooting up miles into the sky. Wait, what just happened? I stammered. I've got to either let people into my dimension or open it up myself. Cronoa flashed a cheeky grin at me. You know, time and space are like two sides of the same coin. You can't really mess with one without having a bit of a handle on the other. And your little dimension? It's pretty fresh and has no barriers, so it was a breeze for me to pop open a portal to it, she said, clearly proud of herself. When I arrived and saw Mr. Popo had left the seed he found for you on the nightstand next to your bed, I just went ahead and planted it for you while I was here. Looks like you have 3 days worth of fruit to use up now. Oh, that's good to hear, I suppose. Oh, I just realized we're actually on a bed. A bed I know well, in a room that feels all too familiar with its plain white walls. It's the same room I first woke up in, or at least the version of it in this timeline. I think I should set up some barriers around my dimension, though. Thankfully, I've got a solid idea on how to do that, all thanks to the new information that's been flooding my brain. Thanks. I said with a smile, this is going to be a huge help. Seriously, I'm telling the truth. So, if you have 2 Tree of Might, that means you're getting 48 fruits a day, right? So, if we're talking about 20,000 increases for each one, that adds up to 960,000 in battle power every day. Over 3 days, we're looking at a total of 2,880,000. Pretty impressive, right? Now that I've unlocked my magic in the Mystic Scion form, that's like having 3 whole Frisia levels in Super Saiyan. That's great to hear. Cronoa smiled brightly and then clapped her hands together, finally letting go of my hair for the first time. I think it's a good idea for you to stay under the radar with Fu while we're collaborating. Right now, just have fun exploring all those timelines in your time ring. Take every opportunity to level up and get stronger. I'll do my best to handle the time break energy that Fu might gather from what you do. Isn't that kind of bad? Aren't you supposed to put a stop to things like that? I went ahead and asked. She shrugged and said, yeah, but honestly, compared to all the chaos Tawa caused, it's really not that much. Plus, it's totally worth it for what this Fu will do later. Then she added, anyway, I should probably get going since my energy is running low. Do you need anything from me before I head out? Not really, no. I really just need some alone time to sort through everything that's been going on in my head right now. Besides letting me know how to reach you later in, I took a moment to think and then said, you know, there's actually something that pops into my head. Oh. Cronoa raised an eyebrow at me, encouraging me to continue. So, are King Yema's fruit really a thing? I asked. She looked at me for a second, then blinked as if she finally got it. Oh, those things. Totally, they are for sure real. They taste amazing, but they only boost your power that one time. So even if you eat more after the first one, they won't help your power anymore, she said, then flashed me a playful grin. Actually, just a second, cutie. Kai Kai. What? I gasped in surprise as her thighs vanished from beneath my head, and I suddenly felt soft fabric resting against my skull. A moment later, she popped up on the bed above me, still grinning, and holding a big golden apple in one hand. "Here you go," she said, holding it out to me. "Once you get past a certain point, they won't work anymore, and I think you're getting close to that. Hey, you might want to grab this now before you lose out completely." "All right," I answered, a bit unsure. Wow, my mind is just overflowing with all this information right now, and it's tough to wrap my head around it all. I raised my hand, and she let it fall into my palm. "What's the best way to grow a tree of them?" I asked her before she moved on. "Just take the seed from inside the fruit and plant it in your little dimension. It grows on life force, just like the tree of might." Yema planted his tree near hell to use the residents there for energy, she said with a giggle, pointing out something that sounded a bit horrifying. "And don't worry about reaching out to me. I'll be keeping an eye on you, so if you need me, just call out and I should hear you. See you later," she said, bending down to give me a little pat on the head before she vanished completely. I heard something break, but I couldn't see what it was. Wow, that was quite an experience. I mumbled to myself, kind of groggy, as I shuffled over to rest my head on the pillow. I looked down at the golden fruit in my hand. I might as well just get it done now. I thought about it for a moment, then brought it to my mouth and took a bite. Right when I did that, I could feel my power rising up inside me, growing bigger and bigger. Naruto's battle power is 268,421,842. My power really took off, doubling in strength. I was buzzing with energy and just had to do something. The headache eased up, and my thoughts started racing like crazy. I'd say a mile a minute, but honestly, that feels way too slow to describe how fast my mind is racing. I just swiped my hand and, boom, a portal to my own dimension opened up. I had this tiny golden seed in my hand, about the size of half my fingernail, left over after I enjoyed the golden fruit that Kranoa gave me. Since I could open a portal anywhere in my dimension, it was pretty easy to just pop one open right above the ground. I poked a hole with my finger, dropped in the golden seed, and then covered it up. So, unlike the tree of might, this one didn't just spring up right away. I could sense another connection forming in the dimension, deep in the soil of the island that Guru gave me. It started to draw in the massive ki that I was passively filtering into the dimension. Anyway, it's all good. I yanked my arm back and shut the dimension behind me before bouncing out of bed. I was just about to leave the room when I noticed my reflection in the mirror. I was without a shirt on. It looked like someone had somehow taken off my bio armor. I'm thinking it's probably Kranoa. And when I looked down, I noticed my GI pants weren't in the best shape either. It's probably due to my fight with Fu that messed up my top, and I guess it's also because I just let Android 18 blast at me whenever she wanted. Yeah, I guess they weren't really helpful to me at this point. They really don't weigh much at all anymore. Check this out about Scion Zenkais. They don't just boost a Scion's power. They boost the physical body to manage that extra power too. I kicked off my boots, then slipped my finger into the waistband of my GI and boxers. With a quick tug, I pulled them off and let them fall to the floor. I glanced at them and tapped into a little bit of what I learned before, then shot out a couple of red-eye beams that completely erased their clothes and boots. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and couldn't resist giving a little smirk while flexing my biceps. I already had the physique of a Greek god, but after munching on King Cold's tail, my muscles have definitely bulked up a bit more, and my shoulders are looking broader too. Even though my muscles are strong and well developed, they're also perfectly balanced so they don't hold back my speed or flexibility. Honestly, the Scion Zenkai is just amazing. My species has this innate ability in our genes to create the ultimate warrior build. We just need the right resources to make it happen. And you better believe I have everything I need for that. With all the size I've packed on from the Ultra Divine Water, the Tree of Might, and now King Cold, I feel like my body could totally win a game of chicken against a planet. Taking a look at myself, I'm just about an inch shorter than Bulma now. And hey, even though it's a bit limp right now, you can definitely tell it went through some evolution after munching on King Cold's tail too. It's gotta be the ultimate when it comes to dicks, right? And that's not even counting the ultra dick form. Bulma, you're not just dealing with any ordinary scion anymore. I let out a little laugh. I was just getting ready to whip up some bio armor to cover up, when a better idea popped into my head. In thinking it's time to give molding my magic into a spell a shot, I focused on what I learned from Piccolo and Kami, then pointed my finger at myself, imagining a specific outfit in my head, and said, "Clothes beam." I couldn't help but smirk as I shaped my magic just like I remembered it. A golden beam shot from my finger and hit me in the chest, and in a flash of light, my nude form was covered again. I took a moment to admire my outfit in the mirror. I'm wearing a plain white top under an open gray short-sleeved jacket, and there's a necklace with a green crystal hanging from my neck. I was rocking black jeans and some solid boots that totally reminded me of Scion armor, all matching my jacket perfectly. Wow, you are seriously a sexy beast. I gave myself a little wink in the mirror, then turned on my heel and headed out of the room. I could sense a bunch of energies coming together up at the top of the lookout. It felt so familiar, but at the same time, it was way stronger than I recalled. I took a moment to process it, and my eyes went wide. Oh man, I totally passed out from all that info Shenron hit me with, damn. I let out a silent curse. I used my new experience with spirit control to boost my ki sensing and quickly spread my senses all over the planet. I clicked my tongue when I noticed how low the population still was, and the only new big and familiar power I sensed was Piccolo. So, that probably meant they could only bring back one person since I wasn't awake to give Shenron the power to revive more. For sure, we've got to hang out until the Dragon Balls are ready to bring everyone back. Now that the initial excitement of getting more wishes has worn off, I can think a bit more clearly, and maybe this is for the best. Things are pretty chaotic in the world right now, and it seems unlikely that it can support the population it had before the androids started causing trouble. If it comes down to it, I can whip up my own set of Dragon Balls and handle it myself. I thought about it. I've figured out how to create 2 different sets of Dragon Balls now. I started off like a name Kian from the Dragon Clan, but I can't really take that path since I'm not part of the Dragon Clan myself. I got some info from Popo, too. After studying under Kami for quite a while, he's figured out how to make his own, though it's a much weaker version since he's not part of the Dragon Clan. So, like, the dragons that he and I could create wouldn't be able to bring anyone back to life. That kind of explains why he never went through with them. Even if he had, he wouldn't be able to bring back Kami and the others. So, cleaning up the mess that the androids created in the world. I think any dragon I create now should definitely be able to handle that. I pushed it aside for the moment and headed over to the outside of Kami's place. And went outside. Right when I looked over, my eyes caught sight of a group of 5, and there was this tall named Kian in purple who stood out, being the newest addition to the crew. So, there he is with the 2 beat-up and unconscious twin androids lying at his feet. They weren't held back. So, with Gohan around and them looking so worn out, that worked out just fine. But they have enough power to blow up the Earth, even if they're only awake for a few seconds and have that little bit of time to act. Oh, I definitely recall this one restraining technique that some fool came up with in the future. Now that I have all this knowledge on shaping ki, replicating it should be a breeze. I raised my hands and shaped my ki into these cool crimson-red energy rings, then sent them flying out. The 5 of them looked at me right when I pulled the trigger, and just like that, the 2 androids were wrapped up in 3 energy rings each, holding their torsos, legs, and arms tight. Hey there, everyone. I gave them a casual wave and a smirk. Piccolo was the first to chime in, crossing his arms and snorting. You're right, he is cocky as hell, he said to Gohan. It seems to me that this is pretty humble for him. Gohan let out a sigh. So, like, is it really cocky if it's actually true? I smirked and pointed to myself. I mean, just look at me, I'm absolutely amazing. So, my buddy Little Green and I, if it weren't for him, we probably wouldn't even be having this chat right now, Piccolo. I added, and Den just lit up with joy at my compliment. I really appreciate both of you, and Dent has done an amazing job, but let's be real, the truth is the truth. Piccolo shot me a smirk in return. Piccolo is and always will be a sassy character. Well, except for that time he was totally freaking out because of Bu. I'll let him slide on that one, considering Piccolo had never faced anyone taller than him before. Wow, that sounds like it was a really scary day for him. I have to say, this back and forth is pretty entertaining. Bulla cut in and pointed at me. Hey, what was that huge power boost you just had? Wow, your power really doubled, and you're not stuck in that weird form you had when you wished for magic from that crazy dragon. After just a moment of thinking, an excuse popped into my head. My brain was literally leaking out of my ears. I shrugged. Honestly, I never want to feel that way again. Baby, Daddy's a scion with regeneration that makes Piccolos look cute. I probably would have kicked the bucket if it weren't for my regeneration. I just got a huge Zenkai because of it. Are you kidding me? She lifted her eyebrows at me, looking both curious and skeptical. Yeah, I get it, Gohan said, crossing his muscular arms over his chest. The whole Zenkai thing is still a bit of a mystery for me since I've only had small boosts over the years. But back on Namek, my dad's strength shot up more than 30 times between his fights with Captain Ginyu and Frieza. Just doubling his power, no matter how high it is totally something he can handle. Wow, that's lucky. Bulla snapped her fingers and gave me a jealous pout. I just lifted my chin at her with a bit of a smirk. Hey, don't be so jealous, Bulla, Gohan said with a chuckle, your power has shot up over 70 times today. I know, but I really feel like I'm not even in the same league as you three. She responded by pointing at me, Piccolo, and Gohan. Ugh, enough of this, Piccolo sighed, rolling his eyes. We can have fun later, but right now we need to deal with the androids. Gohan filled me in. So, where do we find this cell thing you mentioned to him? Oh man, always such a downer, huh? In the northern mountain range from North City, I said, but hey, Dend, can you work your magic on Piccolo too? Sure, I can, Dend said, glancing at Piccolo. Are you cool with that? So, potential unlocking, huh? Piccolo hummed, sure thing, kid, I'm good with it. Once he's finished, we're going to track down this cell guy. The quicker we handle these androids, the sooner we can kick back and relax. Fair enough, I said, I guess you're eager to jump back into Gohan's training, huh? He's got all the power he needs for now, but he never really got the training to use it right or to fight smarter. If he really wanted to, he could have taken out the androids with your special beam cannon ages ago. I just couldn't wrap my head around that. He had the power, and they just couldn't pick up on him. He could have totally taken them out if he had just fought a bit smarter. Looks like the kid still needs me to give him a little nudge, huh? Piccolo gave Gohan a warm smirk as he bent down to let Dend reach his head. Thank you for watching this amazing video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more content. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And a happy new year.